What's up, Wizards? It's Dev from Mtg, and today we're doing something a little bit different. Call it a palate cleanser, if you will, because this weekend and yesterday and today, I played 6 hours of MTG every day, except for today. I played 4 hours today. Took a little bit of a break, and that's what we're doing. Over the weekend, I not only watched the World Championship, played Arena almost the entire time I was doing that. But the last couple of days I've been testing decks on Arena for the channel. And I've gotten in about 10 hours worth of play in the last 2 days. So here's the thing. Almost all of that play, both this weekend and over the last couple of days, has been against either blue-white control or mono-red. So I'm just, honestly, I've gotten slightly, I won't say sick of, the standard environment. We'll talk a little bit about that because, not only are we going to play something a little bit different today, but we are going to talk about Magic. So don't despair. There's going to be a lot of Magic talk today. But we are going to play Hollow Knight, though, because I wanted to take kind of a day off. Again, just kind of refresh myself, cleanse the palate a little bit, and just, get down, play something else. But I also wanted to talk about Magic. So I'm just kind of going to kill two birds with one stone here and kind of hammer out my thoughts, talk things out with y'all while I play a little bit of Hollow Knight, if that's okay. Hope you can still love this video. If you haven't seen Hollow Knight, it's a really, 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 really good game. Maybe one of the best games released in the last 5 years, if not the best. It's like this and Stardew Valley are probably my two favorite games in the last 3 to 4 years. So something you didn't know about me probably. But anyway, I do still want to spend like pretty much this entire video talking about Magic. There's a couple of boss fights that we're going to do where I might concentrate just slightly, but for the most part, we're going to talk about Magic today because I really want to talk about the World Championship, and I want to talk about, again, the Arena meta, especially over the last couple of days coming out of testing here. Now, again, mostly what I've been seeing is blue-white and mono-red. And those decks did do fairly well at the World Championship. And the thing is, mono-red didn't even actually come in second place. It was Jeskai Fires. And I have played against Jeskai Fires a couple of times in the last few days, but I mean literally like a couple of times in the last few days. It's really not much whatsoever. I haven't played against like Team of Reclamation more than maybe twice in the last 2 days as well. Just no one playing that deck, even though it is ostensibly one of the best decks in the format. Got 7th and 8th place at the World Championship. You'd think a lot more people would be on it, but no, it's mostly blue-white and mono-red. And I can understand why. Mono-red is the fastest way to bang out games, and it's a really powerful deck. And then blue-white is probably the most reliable way to get wins. And the games take, half an hour some of the time, but then sometimes they don't. I was talking about this on Twitter earlier today. I got a conversation started. I think like 30 people have replied to this post so far. But, I was saying that mostly what I've, even when I'm playing blue-white control, especially when I'm playing blue-white control, I get a lot of people just like scooping to, having absorb mana open. And then especially if you have like a Teferi out, people just like auto scoop to it all the time. And like, is that an issue, right? Like when it comes to that, then do you have a problem? Not is blue-white too powerful of a deck, because I don't think that it necessarily is. I think the issue is that it's just no fun to play against. And although control is almost never fun to play against, I think the control has an awful lot of like amazing pieces right now that I'm a little bit surprised that it has that kind of access to. And it doesn't make control fun to play against at all, right? Like there's often at least some hope, right, with control. But have you been playing Thought Erasure or like Agonizing Remorse in this format? Like how awful does it feel when you're up against blue-white control? You hit that discard spell on turn 2, and they've got like 2 Teferis and 2 Dream Trawlers and an Absorb and a Narset. It's just like, it feels so bad. Even if you can get one of those important cards out of their hand. What is this noise? But even if you can get one of those important cards out of their hand, it kind of doesn't matter some of the time. They still have way too many amazing cards. So, man, that was a weird noise. I don't think I've ever heard that noise playing Hollow Knight. Seriously. But I usually don't play with the sound on, so take that for what it is. But in any case, yeah. I think that blue-white, like especially Teferi, not. It's not even that it's not fun to play against. It's just like, as Paulie from Goodfellas would say, it's not even fair. Teferi is such a silly Magic card in terms of like the tempo it allows you to gain. But the most important thing on Teferi is the passive. Like, not only can you not like counter your opponent's spells, that's not a big deal, right? The problem with Teferi is that your opponents can't do anything at instant speed whatsoever. And that is like, it just hurts so bad to not be able to interact with like almost anything your control opponent does because they have a Teferi out. It's just, it's not Magic. That's the thing. It's like one of the most common replies to my post on Twitter was like, I want to play against decks that allow me to play Magic. And blue-white control does not allow me to play Magic. And I actually like totally understand that. The thing is, blue-white control has never actually let you play Magic before. But this time around, this like, this permutation of it is just absolutely crazy in like how little it actually allows you to play Magic. So, jeez, why was that so loud? Anyway, in case you didn't know, you can do that on that boss. But yeah, blue-white control, I'm not going to say that like you should ban anything, because I don't even think you should ban Teferi. I just think that maybe there should have been a little bit more in place to combat this deck right now, because I think that you're experienced enough in Arena, you played enough decks, it's just like obvious that blue-white control is the all-around best deck there is in the format right now. Mono red is very, very close, and very often in game one, best of one, it can prey on these control decks. But that said, if the control deck gets a Shatter the Sky or something, like that can just be game over for the mono red deck. However, the major like interplay in standard right now, like the major interaction, is whether or not the mono red player can get an annex down before the opponent can Shatter the Sky. That's like a huge play pattern right now. And I'm like slightly worried that that's the only play pattern that like actually matters in standard at the end of the day. When you break it all down, I'm pretty worried that like Annex versus Shatter the Sky is like the big interaction. There's also the idea that a control opponent might just get to their Dream Trawler, and that's usually the end of your game too. But sometimes in those games, if it's gotten to turn 6 or whatever, the aggro opponent can just Ember Cleave or something in the game anyway, or Torbrand still ends the game, right? So it all kind of depends on the board state at that point. But all of the like major, play patterns and lines in this format kind of revolve around, like, even when you're building your own deck and it's not mono red and it's not blue white, like, it still kind of revolves around that sort of basic play pattern. And that's what kind of bums me out about standard Magic right now, is that like it sort of feels like baby's first standard to me. You got a mono red deck that's really fast. You got a blue white control deck that is, it just plays blue white control. Like, these are really classic archetypes, and I guess I don't really have a problem with that. But the issue that I have is that like it gets boring, especially when you've been playing Magic for 25 years. It's like, oh, this standard environment, again, like two of the most basic archetypes you could possibly come up with in Magic are the two best archetypes in Magic right now. I don't know. It all feels like very basic, even though like right now mono red and blue white just have some of the best cards they could ever hope to have in a million years, right? Like, I think this might be the best mono red deck in a really long time. And that's coming after a format where mono red was a serious Scourge and a Goblin Chain Whirler, Vashina Pyromancer, Wizard's Lightning, just so many amazing cards. But still think this deck might be better. And like that includes the Khans of Tarkir mono red deck that had like Monastery Swiftspear in it. And that deck was unfreaking believable. Stoke the Flames. The deck was just crazy, but I still think that, in terms of what you're looking for as a mono red mage, this format has like more cards, in general than that deck has had in a really long time. It's just that perfect critical mass right now. And there's actually like multiple ways, to build it. There is no like settled upon build of mono red. Do you play Infuriate or do you not? There's just so many different ways to build it. So it's just, no matter how you build your mono red deck at this point, it's probably going to be pretty decent, right? So It's just got so many powerful options, and blue-white does too, although that build is a little bit more settled upon. But again, you got Teferi, you've got like the best win condition you could ever hope for in Dream Trawler. You've got Absorb, which is an amazing hard counter. Even at 3 mana, it's an incredible hard counter, especially in a format where your number one enemy is mono red. It's just incredible. Even like a card like Birth of Melodus that looks pretty unassuming is like insane. It's just so much value on one card. So like right now, blue-white too has like some of the best cards I could ever hope to have. So, and I haven't even named them all. You know, like Omen of the Sea is a pretty crazy Magic card, especially with Teferi in the format to like bounce it back to your hand. You know, same thing with Banishing Light. Sometimes Teferi and Banishing Light are like a really, really good combo in a way. It's just there's really crazy ways to build these decks, and it's just got all these powerful cards. And I just don't know that there are too many other decks that are sort of along those same lines right now. I put Ramp as, you know, the number 3 deck in my tier list, just because it's kind of a similar deck right now in that it's got like all of these ridiculous cards. You know, like I'm a little surprised that there wasn't a straight up Ramp deck at the World Championship. The Ramp decks were sort of, you know, usurped by the Temur Reclamation decks, which are kind of ramp decks, kind of combo decks, you know, in some cases even control decks in a way. So, but the Temur decks play just a buttload of ridiculous, amazing cards too. So, but even so, I don't know that Temur Reclamation is really something you have to worry about. Like if you're in the, you know, hardcore competitive meta, you know, you go into, you know, just high profile events, then I could definitely see it's something you game plan for. But it's just, again, not really as much part of the arena meta from what I can tell right now. Mostly because, don't take this the wrong way, anybody. But like when compared to blue-white and mono-red, it's just a fairly like complicated deck. And there's a very high number of like newish players on arena with the rollout and all that. Like we're still like right around 6 months or maybe a little bit less than 6 months from the from when the beta finished, right? Like, you know, it hasn't been an official game for you know, only about 6 months now. So there's still a fair amount of like really new players play in arena. And a lot of them, I imagine, are going to be more attracted to these kind of linear decks. And the blue-white control, the way it's built right now, is kind of linear, honestly. Like that's the thing with blue-white control. And I made this case in the tier list video. I'll stand by it. It's that like right now, blue-white is really easy to build, or at least a little bit more obvious of a build than it usually is, right? So, you know, you can't say the same thing you usually do about control, which is that control isn't very strong at the beginning of formats. Because at the beginning of the format, you're usually waiting to see what the best decks are, right? You have to like figure out what the best way to use all of your slots is and all that. But we didn't really go through that this time around, right? Like blue-white control was just a pretty obvious build. And even though there is some like variance in the way people play it, there's really not that much variance. And I especially think that PBDDR's build is going to see a lot of play now, and even like, you know, variations of that one, because I actually think that what I want to do is play that deck, but play an extra copy of Archon of Sun's Grace. This is what I've been doing with it. So I always do that at this. I always press B instead of A for no apparent reason. But anyway, back to Temur Reclamation for a second, and then I'll kind of get into how to attack blue-white and mono-red in this format. But Temur Reclamation, I don't know if it's a real deck just because it's a little bit more complicated than the standard fair, I guess. It's not quite as linear, and even though it is like really dynamic and it's a fun deck, it's a cool deck, especially when you pull it off, right? And it's not that hard to pull it off. I think Temur Reclamation is as consistent or more consistent than it's ever been in this format, but there's also a couple of other decks in this format that are a lot simpler, a lot more linear, a lot easier to play, and just, you know, I think the vast majority of arena players are going to prefer. So again, in the more competitive standard meta, I think that Temur is definitely a deck. But if you're mostly playing arena, which is the vast majority of Magic players at this point, then or at least, you know, there's definitely a lot of commander players and standard players still get F&M and stuff. But I think that it's probably safe to say that in terms of sheer numbers, a lot of standard players are playing on arena. So. But, you know, in terms of them, I think mostly mono-red is what they want to play. But I've seen a lot of blue-white. That's probably because it won the World Championship. Hey, it's this weird noise again. It's this strange noise. But now it's apparently, well, no, it hasn't stopped. Anyway. Had to save Zote. Let's get out of here. What a strange noise that is. Anyway, everybody. Now I should talk for a little bit before I get to Hornet about how to approach this particular issue that we're having in Standard. I'm probably going to concentrate a little bit for the Hornet boss fight, but then I'll get back to talking a little bit about what you can do. My first idea is a deck like Dimir, perhaps. Some sort of black-blue control, and I know that combating control with control is really just exacerbating the problem a little bit. And the other thing with Dimir is that, like, why not just play blue-white? Because then you get to play Teferi, you get to play Elspeth Conquers Death, you know, you get to play Dream Trawler if you play blue-white. So why not just play Esper or straight-up blue-white instead of Dimir? Well, Dimir gets Thought Erasure, and it gets Agonizing Remorse, and I think that that is going to be a huge deal. Coming up. If you know, again, if you're looking for specific ways to attack control decks, being able to disrupt their hand is actually a huge deal. So I think maybe decks like that could work out. But there's also the idea that you have to, you know, you have to answer Dream Trawler in some way or another. Especially like if they top deck, it doesn't matter if you made them discard their entire hand twice. You can still top deck a Dream Trawler and just end your game right then and there. Well, in that case, I think maybe we should try more Edict effects in this Standard. You know, we've got things like the Rakdos decks have Angrass Rampage, which I think is actually an amazing card, all things considered. So maybe try that one out. But there's also stuff like Liliana's Triumph and even Priest of Forgotten Gods, which I think if you get the right start in your Priest deck against aggro, it can be pretty decent, but usually it's not great against control. That said, if you can get one like Priest activation off against Dream Trawler, or just having Priest on the board means they don't cast their Dream Trawler until they get an answer, that could be a big deal too. So I think it's possible, and Rakdos is already a decent deck. Rakdos really is a decent deck already. Hopefully I don't die to Hornet here. Okay, we got her. We got her with one mask left. Woo! Okay, get out of here, Hornet. But I've got a lot more to talk about, so maybe I'll just keep, you know, tooling around and playing here. While playing, especially while fighting bosses and stuff, I'm pretty sure that I'm not being as coherent as I could be. So all apologies for that. Oh, I got to do the Dreamers cutscene here. There we go. All right. But quick cough. But anyway, yeah, Edict effects I think could be really, really, really sweet. You know, again, especially Angrass Rampage, such a good card. Liliana's Triumph, Plague Crafter, also a good one. Priest of Forgotten Gods, again, sweet, sweet card. And even against aggro, again, Priest of Forgotten Gods could be sweet. There's a start where you get like Gutterbones turn 1, turn 2 Priest, turn 3 Mayhem Devil. And at that point, you might have to like sacrifice Mayhem Devil to pull this up. Whoops. To pull this off. But it also could easily be worth it. You know, you sacrifice Mayhem Devil and Gutterbones to Priest of Forgotten Gods, like ping their two small creatures off the board, like ping a Fervent Champion and a Scourge Spitter, and then get them to sacrifice their bigger creature. I've run into that start a few times playing with Rakdos, and it's actually really, really important that you get that start against Mono Red, and it's a great start. So Rakdos has game against like multiple decks in the format, and I think that if it just adjusts a little bit to play some more Edict effects, it might actually be a pretty sweet deck in this format. Plus, it's got stuff like Woe Strider, which kind of combats, you know, things like Shatter the Sky and other sweepers that blue-white control might have. Like anything you can escape out of your graveyard is pretty sweet. And Woe Strider actually doesn't cost, you know, what is it, 4 cards to escape. So it doesn't cost as much as stuff like, you know, Croxa or Euro. You know, we're used to like 6 cards to escape. 4 cards isn't that much. So I've really liked Woe Strider in a few decks in this format right now. And I'm a little bit surprised that more people didn't bring, you know, a sacrifice deck. I think that Glogowski was the only one that a canister was the only one that brought a sacrifice deck. I think I actually go right here, but and he did not do super well on the day, which is, you know, a little disheartening for the Jund players out there. But Jund did, you know, Jund's another deck that just has all these insanely powerful cards. If Jund can't get it done, that tells you something. But still, you know, that's 2 ideas. But you know, Rakdos and Dimir, put them together. What do you get? You get Grixis. And I actually think it might be time to reevaluate Grixis Fires, because it gets access to things like Thought Erasure, Agonizing Remorse, all those cards, right? But it also gets, you know, Angrass Rampage and Edict effects if it wants it, but mostly Angrass Rampage. I think it just could be really good right now in the 2-drop slot. So, and I'm talking about like, 4 Thought Erasure, 4 Agonizing Remorse, 2 or 3 Angrass Rampage. That's your entire bottom end. And then, from there on, it's fires, which is, you could use Nicol Bolas, who I don't actually have so much faith in as a finisher in these Grixis decks. I think that Bolas has proven that he needs to be slightly better to actually see real play in the format. But in the context of Grixis Fires, it has access to these Edict effects for Dream Trawler, as well as, these hand disruption effects for control in general. They could be really good. Plus, Grixis Fires still has access to Storm's Wrath and Ritual of Soot, Cry of the Carnarium, Flame Sweep, just a bunch of different sweepers against the aggro decks in the format. So I think it might be worth trying out, but then you run into that same problem I was talking about earlier, where it's like, oh, if I'm playing this, sort of mid-rangey, control-y, combo-y Grixis Fires deck, that's a lot of different archetypes. But if I'm playing this Grixis Fires thing that's kind of a control-y archetype, why not just play Blue-White Control, right? Because again, you've probably got overall better card quality in a deck like Blue-White Control. So it's kind of a tough road to hoe. But there's other things you could do. Like the Teamer deck, the Reclamation deck, could possibly just play more main deck counter spells. I could see that being a thing that could greatly benefit it. Because if you just play more negates or something in the main deck, or maybe Mystical Disputes, then you're probably going to answer a lot of what Control is doing, especially when they're just trying to answer what you're doing. They leave 3 mana open for Absorb. Well, Mystical Dispute is amazing in that situation. So I definitely think that there's an argument for Teamer and ways for it to adapt. I always get hit by that guy. But ways for it to adapt. But again, I have to see more from Teamer. And I'm really hard on Teamer. I am. Because I always say I have to see more from it, even after it gets 7th and 8th place at... I'm supposed to go down and right. But, even after it gets 7th, 8th place at Worlds, I still want more from it. But, it's got to prove itself. But it could probably do something about Control. It's just, it's not always, even if it plays more counters, it's not always going to get them. So I'm just not super sure what it does, right? I always go this way too. I'm supposed to go up. But in any case, there's other stuff I wanted to talk about a little bit. I think I just want to finish the video by beating the Mantis Lords. So I'll talk until then. But in any case, I think too that Fires has a lot of different stuff it could be doing. I was just saying maybe Grixis Fires. But honestly, I think the Grixis deck probably wants to play Ionize or Sinister Sabotage or some other counterspell. So I don't know if Fires is the right way to go. That said, Fires might not have to adjust that much. Obviously got 2nd and 3rd. That's pretty good showing. It did lose to Blue-White in the finals, but still pretty decent showing there. And I think that it's still very much a deck. So, but where does it go from here? How does it adjust and all that, right? So I think that some decent options are, first of all, 6 mana Chandra. Although in the testing I've been doing, because I played a little Rakdos Fires. I think Rakdos Fires is number 200 and something mythic right now. So I copy pasted that deck list and tried it out. And honestly, thought it was fun, but didn't absolutely love it. To be honest with you. But I've been trying it out a little bit. And the problem is that you still kind of get killed by stuff like Dream Trawler and stuff. It's kind of a problem. Hold on, I kind of lost my place here. Yeah, I knew I was supposed to go the other way. But I think that that's what it was. 6 mana Chandra. Sorry. But when it comes to 6 mana Chandra, I have been trying it in the Rakdos Fires deck, and it's not good enough against Dream Trawler. It's kind of abysmal against Dream Trawler. It doesn't do anything. You can try and kill Dream Trawler, but usually it's just a discarded card on their end. Another bone to pick, by the way, just a quick aside when it comes to Dream Trawler, just another thing that I can't stand about it, is that Teferi exists. I'll just put it that way. Because Dream Trawler, you're supposed to be able, there's this thing, right, baked into the card, where you're supposed to be, right before your opponent's attack step, before they go to attack. You just had to get that cutscene. But just before they attack, you cast something on a Dream Trawler that forces them to tap it down so they can't attack with it that turn. That's supposed to be how that interaction works. But Teferi, right? They have Teferi out, you can't play anything at instant speed, so you just cannot interact with Dream Trawler on their turn whatsoever. So Goo. I just want to point that interaction out. It's really, really, really annoying. But anyway, as far as fires goes, again, I think Chandra isn't necessarily the tool that it needs to win that match. I think the way that Fires wins that match usually is just by overwhelming, the Grixis, the blue-white controller player has, one absorb in their opener, maybe an absorb in a Dovin's Veto. Well, as long as you can either do one of two things, resolve your fires for whatever reason, maybe they played Teferi on their turn 3, left the mana open, you can actually resolve fires. That's one way to do it. Or you can trick them into somehow, using counter magic up or using their mana in some way or another, and then resolving your fires like that, which is often how you have to go about it. But either way, you can often just overwhelm the opponent once you have fires down. And that is usually how those games are won. Is, I've got my fires, Cavalier Flame. Oh, that got countered. Oh, Cavalier Flame. Or Cavalier of Dawn or Kinrith the Return King. You force them to do something about that. And if they can do something about it, then you just draw them from dreams and play something else next turn, right? Like, it can be really difficult, even for a control player, to get through the onslaught of, like, turn 4, 5, and 6 against a fires deck. So, that's the only real way I see fires winning the game. At least when I play with fires, that's about the only way I end up winning the game. So there's that. Oops. I always forget the second pool is down here. I'm just trying to get to the bench. But anyway, this has been some good yet terrible Hollow Knight play today by Dev. I still haven't gotten a map. That's kind of cool. I'm not using Wayward Compass. That's fun. But I've also fallen a few times when I had like no reason to fall, so that's always fun. But anyway, a little bit more Magic talk before we finish it up here. Let me get in here. Again, I think overwhelming is probably the best way for the Jeskai Fires decks to win those matchups, but it's not guaranteed. That said, it kind of feels 50-50-ish, maybe 55-45 control player, although you'd think the control player would stomp Jeskai Fires, but there's so many high-value threats in the Jeskai Fires deck that even if you don't have a Fires down, all you have to do is resolve a threat or two and you're in business. Even against, a Dream Trawler. That's the thing, is a lot of Fires threats can just beat Dream Trawler. So that's one of the reasons I kind of like Ramp right now, to be honest, is that like Ramp has 2 cards that quote unquote beat Dream Trawler. The first is Cavalier of Thorns. And Cavalier of Thorns is very, very good against Dream Trawler. It's got the reach, 6 toughness, so it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to kill it. Even if they do kill it on blocks or something, then they're still going to lose their Dream Trawler. So it's just a fantastic card, and you'll get value out of the deal because you'll get a card back due to Cavalier of Thorns dying. So I just really like Cavalier of Thorns against Dream Trawler, but I also like Euro against Dream Trawler. Like, yeah, it can't block Dream Trawler, and that is a bit of a problem, but it can sometimes keep up with Dream Trawler, deal more damage than Dream Trawler, and keep you in the game as far as life goes. So I like that. I think Ramp has some tools to sort of deal with some of the issues. But again, Ramp hasn't really been, in terms of the World Championship, Ramp wasn't a played archetype. But I think that Ramp could easily become a more played archetype. And it has been for the most part in this season. Ramp has been very, good. But a lot of that, too, is, and this is just a personal theory I have, but a lot of people spent a lot of Mythic Wildcards to build that Ramp deck when Euro came out. And they are loath to give that deck up now because, again, they've spent so many freaking Mythic Wildcards on that deck. So, like, why would they just stop playing it, right? So, yeah, that might be the reason. But, Ramp is just a crazy deck. Thas is a crazy card. Agent of Treachery is a crazy card. Cavalier Thorns is a crazy card. Wow. Risen Reef is a crazy card. So, and those aren't even in every Ramp deck. Things like Risen Reef, right? Like, I think that, a good idea against the control decks right now might possibly be a Bant Ramp deck. Because in Bant Ramp, you get Teferi as well. You get a bunch of other stuff, but Teferi is probably the most important thing. I knew it. I knew I was supposed to go that way. Poop. But yeah, Teferi is probably the most important thing as far as like Bant Ramp goes, but it's such a good card against control. And you tend to forget that. But, often in control mirrors, First to Fairy means an awful lot. So, just transport that idea to Bant. And I think you could really be, in business. So, just a thought. But obviously Bant Ramp gets to play a bunch of other stuff too. Like they get Realm Cloak Giant, which is a pretty sweet card against the aggro decks in the format. But, they get a bunch of other stuff. They could play Shatter the Sky if they wanted to, and they might want to. They get to play Euro, so I think that maybe a Bant Ramp deck, but it all depends. I think that if there was a real Bant Ramp deck right now, then it would already see like a ton of play. And obviously, there's not really one that does. Although I think Croaky's is like number 25 Mythic right now in Arena with a sort of rampy Adventures deck that he's been playing for a really long time. And that is a fantastic deck. But I'm surprised more people don't play it. But here's the Mantis Lords. Let's beat them real quick, and I guess we can get out of here. I've said most of what I have to say. Again, I think that maybe a Dimir control deck is an idea in this format to try and beat blue-white. I think that Rakdos has some cool edict effects that it could use, and some stuff like Woe Strider that's just generally decent against blue-white control, so there's that. I think that maybe combining those ideas and just playing Grixis is something to consider at the very least. Jeez, that one came out fast. Wow. Sorry, I'm going to concentrate slightly. Okay, I can heal here. Just got to be able to jump afterwards. That didn't happen. We're going to pull it off this time. Boom. But anyway, can also heal here. As long as he doesn't follow my head. Ha-ha! Caught you trying to follow my head, jerk. But anyway, as far as the other things, I think the Teamer is probably, still a playable deck in this format. And maybe it can just add more main deck counterspells or something. And that's a thought. So there's that. I think Mono Red really doesn't need too much more help. I think it probably has, easily the best matchup against Blue-White right now, especially with Annex, being a card it can play. And even Embercleave, for that matter. Teferi can shut down Embercleave, but there are definitely games where, the Blue-White deck just doesn't get to Teferi fast enough, or it doesn't want to cast a counterspell. Or, excuse me, it doesn't want to, it has to play Teferi on turn 3, is what I'm trying to say. Just to stave off the bleeding, right? So it literally can't leave Absorb Mana up or it's just dead some of the time. So, again, I think that's another one of the sort of major play patterns in Standard too, is whether or not the Mono Red player gets to Embercleave and whether or not the Blue-White player, I'm supposed to be able to stand in the middle, but whether or not the Blue-White player can, get Teferi down, or whether or not it's worth it to cast Teferi in the first place, right? Oh, I'm going to get hit. Okay, I didn't. Somehow. And I got hit by a nothing attack. I got hit by a guy standing there, so that's fun. But anyway, again, maybe Bant Ramp. I mean, there are definitely ideas, but I don't know. We might just have to wait until this next stupid set to come out, which is actually not that long when you think about it. I think it's slated to come out in April, mid to late April, if I'm not mistaken. See, you can just stand in the middle. I'm not crazy. But slated to come out like mid to late April or something like that. So we should get into spoiler season here towards the middle of March, end of March, something like that, right? So it shouldn't be too long here. Maybe a month left really examining this format. I want to put out another short sort of tier list video in like 2 or 3 weeks' time, just sort of analyzing what happened in this format, especially after the World Championship. But yeah, I think that even though we're not entirely solved here, a deck could still come around tomorrow, and just like change everything. I just don't think it's going to happen. So, even though there are definitely ways to game plan against the top decks, I just don't know at the end of the day if it's going to be able to beat cards as powerful as Dream Trawler and Teferi. Again, though, just like I said on Twitter, I don't think that's, I'm not calling to ban anything. I don't think we're there. And I'm someone who generally is in favor of aggressive bans and has, caught static for that on multiple occasions. If you're into bans, people get really mad at you. And this time I'm not even into bans. Although I don't think that Teferi is a very fun card to play against. I don't think Dream Trawler is a very fun card to play against. I also have never really thought that was the best excuse for banning something. Something unfun to play against isn't necessarily isn't inherently broken, right? There's a difference between broken and unfun to play against. And I think we have a situation where the card is, these cards like Teferi and Dream Trawler are unfun but not broken. So, the closest thing is probably Teferi, to be honest with you. And even that's not broken. So, I don't know that you ban anything necessarily. I wouldn't go that far. But I would say, sit on this bench, that, it's at least time to sort of start examining things a little bit. And I'm not, again, what does that even mean? Like, I'm not calling for bans, but what do we do, right? And I guess just suck it up is probably the major idea, because it's not going to be like this for, ever or anything. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got. We beat the MANTIS Lords. We beat Hornet. We didn't necessarily beat False Knight. We used the exploit to get past him. But that's I guess that's pretty much it. I'm done with Hollow Knight for now. But let me know if you enjoyed this sort of more mellow, stream of consciousness kind of video where we just kind of like chill and talk while we, again, sort of cleanse our palate. I think that's the best term for this. We cleanse our palate and talk about some other games, and talk about some other things in the Magic world. So, yeah, I guess that's more or less it. I'm going to make my way to the City of Tears, and I will catch you cats later. I guess just do all the YouTube stuff if you enjoyed this video. If you want more, just let me know. I'll do Hollow Knight Part 2 and talk about some other Magic-related thing for a while. Just kind of give my thoughts. Sorry if I wasn't entirely coherent, or if I said something that didn't make sense properly, because concentrating on more than one thing here. But for the most part, I think I freaking nailed it. So yeah, just let me know your thoughts, how you think we can approach this standard, solve this standard even more. What's the next step? All that stuff. How do you feel about my ideas? Blah blah blah. Do all the things. And yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit up the Patreon to help support content like this. All of those things really helps me out. Just $1 a month is like amazing, especially during the YouTube apocalypse. It's happening again. I don't know why, but everyone's getting like fewer views. I really don't understand it, but everyone is getting fewer views. But in any case, yeah, just help me out in any way that you can or see fit. And I suppose that I will catch you cats later. Just let me know if you want Hollow Knight Part 2. And let me know if you want to talk more about Magic. I was actually thinking next time about doing some drifting and talking some Magic. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I've got more stuff coming out this week. 2 deck techs this week coming up. And then there's also 2 more gameplay videos I'm going to try to put out as well. So really, really full week of content here. I just wanted to take a little bit of time and screw around on some Hollow Knight. But pretty sure I'm done for this one, so I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.